Tactics.
Hey everyone, welcome to the tech capital of the world. I'm Bobby Dave, CEO and founder of Foundry, and joined by Kevin. Hey Kevin, how you doing?
Good.
I know we didn't plan to talk about this, but U.S. World Cup, we play England. Who's winning?
Well, I mean, come on. There's a reason we haven't talked about it. It's just like one of those
we
things.
Stay friends.
Nah, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's obviously there's an obvious choice. I'm not gonna say, but there's obviously going to be an easy winner there. Easy winner. US ain't making it out of the groups. Sorry, US soccer fans.
We're done. We're smoked.
Yeah. Wales is going to beat you. Gareth Bale's going to score a hat trick. You watch.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always a good game though. It's always a good game. I watched the last. So I told you this story before, but I watched the last World Cup. It was actually 2 World Cups ago when England played the US, and it was, I don't know if it was the opening game. I think it might have been the first game they played. It was one of the group games anyway they played. And I was in Columbus at the time, and I went to a place to watch it. They had this big open air thing, and I went, and it happened to be the US supporters place where they watched it at. The Outlaws, So the US Outlaws is like the supporters group. So, and I go there, and I've got my England scarf, my shirt on, and I'm literally in a group of about 10,000 people. I kid you not, there's about 10,000 people showed up to this thing, and there's me and one other guy.
2 England fans.
Wearing England stuff. And England scored first. The game ended up being 1-1, and England scored first, and I jumped. I got a little chair, and I jumped out of my chair, and there's literally 9,998 other US fans around me, and I'm cheering, and I got yelled at, and it was interesting. Fun times.
That's funny though.
Fun times.
I can see that. See that one cheer. Yeah.
And me and one other dude,
okay,
who's
there's
across the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. But yeah, that's so. Hey, maybe I can relive that again.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly.
I will be back up in Columbus on that day, so I'll be watching it up there. I don't know if I'm going to the same place, but
yeah.
Hey, I might be back the next week. We'll see.
We're not violent over soccer here in the U.S., so if you're in another country, maybe that's a problem.
Maybe. I don't know.
If you're in Portugal watching it or something like that, that'd be
maybe. I don't know. There's some fans here who are pretty
violent,
hardcore,
passionate
about it.
I should say passionate.
Let's call it passionate. Yeah, I've been to some. So I'm a Columbus Crew fan for the MLS, and I've been to an away game in Chicago. And if you know anything about MLS, Crew Chicago is a big rivalry. Pretty hairy stuff, but yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Maybe we won't set the stadium on fire if we lose.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that. That's not that passionate. So yeah, that's next week, right? A few days. No, let's start this weekend.
Yeah, Monday.
I think it starts this weekend, right?
Monday.
Yeah.
So play Wales.
Yeah.
I think it's Monday or next week. I don't know. We'll see.
Cool.
All right, man. What else is on your mind today?
Well, just N17 Heroes with me. So Yep. We know what's up. I saw this great story that I thought that we talk about because we've never really talked about this, but it's a story on The Verge, which terrible design still. The Verge, if you're listening,
right?
Fix this.
Yeah, it's green.
This color's disgusting. Yeah. But what's wrong with US broadband? Yeah, this directly impacts us as developers, right? We internet service and whatever. But they did basically a report. They collected 22,000 internet bills, so they collected their people to send in their invoices to find out what's going on in the US with broadband and internet in general. And their takeaways, pretty much, when we start looking at it, the first takeaway, it's expensive. Yeah. And they talk about comparatively to other places in the world as well. It is literally expensive per megabyte when you drill down to it eventually. But the average internet bill in the US, somewhere between 65 and 75. I'm in this range right here, just above that, more than that.
I'm
$79.
above
that. So it's expensive. That's the first thing, which we know it is. It's expensive for what you get.
Yeah.
And then they talk about by provider as well. So obviously range is all over the place. Some of these actually being satellite too. Look, satellite being on the most expensive side. But look at this one, surprised me. Look, Cincinnati Bell, an old school copper phone company, has some of the most expensive internet out there.
Yeah, I guarantee it. Yeah.
Right? And then you start looking at some of the low rents down here, and literally this one, Ziply Fiber, is one of the lower ones. It's so what this tells you is the quality of the service is not did not mean the price. You don't get better quality for more money, is what I'm saying here.
This is classic. What we in America that we deal with is like classic competition. When there is no competition, the price goes through the roof.
And there you go. You hit the nail on the head. Lack of competition, because look at the next chart. Literally, half the people who were surveyed had one choice.
That's it.
One
and
choice.
It's like, do you want broadband or not?
Right.
Here's the price.
Exactly. I have never in the 20-something years now that I lived in the US ever lived in a location, and I've lived in cities and small towns now where we are, ever had a choice more than one internet provider. Ever.
Right.
Never been an option for me. So I was saying, if my internet provider today came to me and said, hey, your bill's now $200, I'd be like, okay. I literally don't have there's no choice. It's either internet or no internet. They can charge me whatever they chose to charge me. That's a problem.
Here's and I didn't mention this when we were talking about this earlier this morning, but when you even break this out and you go to corporate, so let's say that we're getting, we're bringing fiber to Kernersville. So number one, like we had to pay to have fiber built out to where we're at. We should put a big glowing sign up that says we brought fiber to Kernersville. You're welcome. But our monthly for that fiber bill is $1,200 for 1 gig down and 1 gig up. $1,200 just because we're corporate. Like that's the only reason. If you're personal, it's it's 10% or 90% less than that.
Right. And gig down, gig up is like kind of standard now for fiber, right?
That's for fiber, yeah.
For fiber, that's pretty standard. But again, the fiber. So this company up here, I guarantee you, that's probably what they're giving. Their average price. These are averaged out, right? So they're giving some of these fiber companies at the top here, including Google Fiber here. Look too, is generally mostly gig up, gig down, and that shows you again that quality isn't a thing here, because I'm down here with Spectrum, right? And I'm paying more
Spectrum
for 300 down, 10 up.
I'm on the 20 up. I went the 300 down, 20 up.
Yeah, it's traditional broadband, and here's the thing though: your 20 up is the most you can get, right? You can't pay for more than that. You're maxed out at 20 up. It's like that's crazy. Like where you are right now in the shared location. You'll put a video file up on our shared service, right? We use Frame for video, and you'll put a video file up on the Frame, and it can be like a gig, and it's up there in split seconds.
Just
it's
like that.
seconds. It is literal seconds. I try it. It's like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like not everything's equal here, and so these prices are kind of expensive, and quality doesn't necessarily mean the price, and then your lack of choice is what's doing that. Look at this. Most people, 1 or 2 out of the 22,000. Over 16,000 of them had 1 or 2 choices. That's a problem.
Yeah, I thought that was funny when we made our last video, Twitter, our pre-recorded video. If you haven't watched it, go watch our ideas to fix Twitter. It was 28 minutes long, right? And so part of the stuff coming from me is, self-recorded. And you were saying that you rendered it out in how long did it take? It was
less than 3 minutes. Yeah, 2 minutes.
Less than 3 minutes on the M1. It took forever to upload it.
Yeah.
It's like
it took me. It did. When I was uploading it back up to YouTube after I'd rendered it, which was like 2 minutes and 40 something seconds, I was like, wow, for a 30-minute video, I was like, that's really good. The render time, the upload time was like 40 minutes or something. It took forever.
Right. Yeah.
It just took forever. It's just limited by that. This was the other thing too. Then the one last thing I think they talked about on the survey was adding bogus charges. So this is kind of interesting. When they bogus charges, they just mean like fees that they're adding on that they don't necessarily need to add on. It's like they should be negligible. These kind of ISP, DNS registration fees, all these kinds of other things. They didn't account for
protection money.
Pretty much, yeah. Some of these, I don't know what's going on at HughesNet, but their average is then $70. That just seems insane. This doesn't include rental fees, by the way, for modems and those kind of things, because that's a legitimate fee. These are like these, I don't know what they call them in here. They have like these ISP fees, data allowances and network infrastructure fees and network enhancement fees.
Right.
They're just nickel and diming things to make extra on top.
It's more than a nickel.
They're dollaring and diming over the top. And this last thing that they talk about in here, which I thought was interesting, saying that there's no escape from fiber / traditional internet, because these are the satellite providers, and saying they're just not there yet.
So
they're not there in
Starlink?
reliability or price.
Yeah.
So the price is expensive for satellite. Starlink here is $100. We know it's actually more than that. This is misleading. You've got to spend $500 to get the Starlink hardware. So technically, this is just your monthly bill we're talking about here. So it's $100 a month, and reliability isn't there yet. Speeds might
I
be
don't
okay.
think you can game on any of these Starlight things. You could never. I don't think.
No, your ping's not quick enough. Your latency's too.
Yeah.
It's. You're not going to get a. You're talking about hundreds of milliseconds instead of tens of milliseconds. It's just a problem. Right. So we're not quite there yet with that. So, and again, we're not there in terms of coverage either. This was the amount of out of the bills that they got. That's the part that's satellite versus any other. So it's like it's not there yet.
Satellite's cool if you live in Montana out in the middle of nowhere and there is no infrastructure out there. It's very, very cool. Exactly. But like if you're in a city, and you have a company like as cool as Foundry to bring fiber to your city.
Yep.
So, like Curtisville.
Yeah.
Like I think that's kind of cool. So
definitely. So yeah, Thomas, prices aren't the same in the US. Compared to the rest of the world, I guarantee you guys, if you're in other places in the world, I know especially in the UK, because I have family there, my brother's there, my parents are there still, their internet's faster than mine, like way faster, and it's way cheaper.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You know what's funny about the US in general because of regulation and because of the way it's segmented. So like the reason there's only one provider is we have the FCC here and they sell like Charlotte, North Carolina to a company and say, you're the fiber provider in this area and no one will compete with you. And they pay the FCC rights to be able to do that. And they'll sell it for DSL cable and now they're selling it for fiber. So you'll have 3 providers, but they're really not. There's only one fiber provider in your area. And so like, I think that's the problem with the pricing so high. So we don't have true competition. We're also, because of segmentation, even like mobile, like we're far behind like the rest of the world and like 5G rollout. Like you would think you would come here and we would have the best of everything, but no, we still have, slow 4G on your phone most places. It's
and crazy. I think that's the thing. I think you hear a lot like, well, the US is a big place, so it's like, but when you start really looking at it, yes, it is a big geographical place, but most of the population lives in a much smaller area than is the wider country. We're talking about this place in the US that, of course, like you say, Montana, the broadband internet in Montana is like non-existent, right? It's just it's probably in the big cities and that's it. Like it's not going to be rural at all. So there's lots of the US that isn't covered by broadband as it is now.
So it's kind of crazy, like but then you want Verizon to upgrade their network. Of the things that you've licensed out to the FCC says you can do these areas, and they're like, nah, I'm not going to do that right now. And you have to bring in Sprint or T-Mobile or somebody else. Like we're going to roll 5G out. And finally, they'll get around to it when there's competition. If there was no competition, speed would still be at 10 meg if they could get away with it.
Exactly, it would be. Because 5G obviously allows us to have. You can get new internet at home right through 5G. It's not just your cell phone internet we're talking about anymore. You can get a box that sits on your side at home and you can pull in 5G and then you can share that through Wi-Fi in your house, just like a traditional broadband would come in. But again, it's so limited. We can't get it here. It's not even it's not in Kernersville at all. Yet we have. I mean, I can get 5G on my phone. We can have there's a 5G tower around here. We get it in Greensboro, right? There are towers here, but the infrastructure hasn't been upgraded enough so that we can get it everywhere around here. So
and they need to keep building more towers.
So the internet's access to the internet is still an interesting topic.
So that's our
30 years
that's
later,
our rant for today. It's expensive, man. Like, come on,
it is.
Get it straight.
Yep. Very. Okay, so
why was there no fiber in Kernersville? That's what I don't understand. Like we're in downtown Kernersville. Like you get fiber and like what?
Yeah, and I live just outside of Kernersville, so I know I'm never getting it. Like until it's not on it's not on Main Street. I'm never getting it out here. I'm just convinced I'm never going to get it.
So this building should thank us, for building it out. We should get paid to do that. Like, instead we have to pay them.
Yep.
So
$1,200 a month.
Plus the build out. I didn't talk about that.
Plus the build out. You
have to pay to have it run to your place. Like it's just insane. It's like, what do you mean $5,000?
Right.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's expensive. Okay. So topic for today, we wanted to talk about what's new in .NET. .NET Conf was recently, and a whole bunch of stuff happened, so we thought we wanted to talk about it today.
Normally, like I told you, normally we would talk about .NET Conf when it came out, but like, Elon He's in his third week of running Twitter. That's the news everyone wants to talk about.
Yeah. So it hasn't come after us yet for our
cryptos blow up. We got our blue check mark.
Check marks. Yeah, we didn't pay for these, Elon. So these are freebies. I just put them up here because we're verified. We're verified. Whatever that means these days.
And it means nothing because you can't get it right now. They rolled it back, so they're pushing it back. That's true. I don't talk about Twitter, but yes, they have pulled it back. What are they doing? Go watch our last video if you want to see our fixes. We got some ideas for Elon. We think we can fix it. So, see what he does.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about .NET because I think it's important to us. One of the things that I think this is important is number one, every major tech company is pulling back at this point. Google's going to be announcing layoffs this week. Facebook obviously did it. Twitter did it. We've done a lot of videos on it. Microsoft has some layoffs, but it's like 1,000 people out of 50,000. So it's not like 1%. Big, not a big deal. Yeah. Google's layoffs are kind of small too. So I think we talked about this. A lot of reasons this is going on. Number one, cost cutting at the end of the fourth quarter, get stock price up. Stock prices are down for tech companies in the NASDAQ by a large amount. And so they're just doing some things to do that. Now, here's what's cool though. Of all the companies out there, if you looked at the the safe bets in tech, Microsoft's one of those companies for a reason, and .NET is one of those reasons because of what it does. And so when you're thinking about what am I going to base my career on, most people learn to code and they don't think about what I'm going to base my career on, like what stack am I going to use, what I'm going to try to build. And they make those things out of popularity and those things like that. And say, I'm just going to learn Python because it's easier, but they never really think about what do I get a job with? And so .NET is the reason Code Foundry is the way it is because we're basing on what can you get a job with. So let's look at .NET 7 and see kind of what they got. So they got this article out here. It's kind of cool. You can read it if you want. You also can go back and watch all the videos and presentations from .NET.
Yeah, but we thought we'd use this article. We read through this. We're like, wow, okay, this is really good. This is on dev.to. So we thought we'd like, oh yeah, this is good. We'll just use this as our framework to kind of talk about the things that we want to talk about. Because I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. Get some of the slides in here from the presentations.
Yeah. So the number one thing that comes out right away if you watch them is the adoption of .NET 6 was really quick. And the adoption for over .NET 5, which means that how many people jumped onto .NET 6 versus .NET 5 was up a lot. There's a lot of reasons for this. When you're looking at organizations, .NET 6 is what's called long-term support. So it's going to be supported for 3 years. And .NET 7 is a standard support, which I think is 18 months now. And so this just shows you what's going on in the broader ecosphere around development. This means if people are adopting .NET 6, which means they're moving over to .NET 6, one of two things happen. Number one, they could be on old ASP.NET technology like 4.7, something like that, and they're moving over to .NET 6. Or they have switched away from some other technology and now they're adopting the .NET 6 platform. And so both of those things are happening where people are moving away from, say, a Node environment or a Java environment, and they're taking on the .NET 6. And that's because of several things. This is still, ASP.NET still rated the #1 most loved framework, which is crazy. I mean, and then C# is continually in the top 5 languages, which I don't know, like, some of these stats are misleading. I will say on both ends of it, but like C# being number 5 and then .NET being the most loved framework is kind of like, really? I mean, like,
so people get confused a lot, don't they? Like in a lot of this stuff, how understanding it.
You can't do .NET. Well, you can do .NET without C#.
Use F#.
But most people aren't. I mean, let's be fair. There is F#, there is VB.NET. And so maybe that's what pushes .NET 5 down to the 5th most used language or most beloved language or most popular language, however they want to do it. Yeah. But when we look at open source, and one of the common things about open source is people say, hey, you know what? No one's using this. I don't like .NET because it only runs on Windows, and that's simply far from the truth. And so now there's over 50,000 people in the .NET open source community. That's cool.
Yeah, we've seen that as a big complaint before, haven't we? Like, it's not like it's not open. Like, no, it's very much like this close thing. It's Microsoft. Yeah, it's not. This isn't Microsoft 15 years ago.
Right. You know, and so let's look at some of the highlights here. So one of the things that you need to think about is they said this in .NET 5 that one of the lead architects, I remember this on Twitter, he was talking about, you know, the .NET 5 release, and he says, I had to go convince upper management that performance is a feature. Instead of us just adding and bolting on more things and making it do more things, let's make it faster. Because if you have a faster runtime, that leads to lower cloud costs, that leads to apps performing better, and that leads to adoption. And we're going to talk about why adoption is important to you in a second, because this is really important. So they've committed to being fast, and it is fast. And so you can see .NET 5 from .NET 6 to .NET 7, how much faster it is. Now,
these are just the number of improvements they've put in around performance.
Yeah, performance improvements. Yeah. That's thousands of plus and performance improvements where they're really digging into this. And they're going to do this with every major release. And so as they go through this, they're pouring over their own source code, making it faster, making it more efficient. And so that means that this is the fastest .NET we've ever seen, period, by a large margin. And so then they went and looked at, okay, well, you say it's faster. What do you mean by faster? And they've looked at specific APIs, things that we do all the time, plain text, JSON. And so like those things they can measure those metrics, and it is quick, really quick, you know? And so you can see this when you push something over on your cloud environment, and it used to use this much memory, it used to take this long to run a particular transaction. And now it's going to be 16% faster, and sometimes they have these benchmark applications, Fortunes, that's 25% extra faster, pretty quick.
But how does that compare to other languages?
So then it's like, okay, we know it's faster, but maybe it was a slow turtle to begin with, and so like, is it faster than say no? And the answer is like, it's not even close. And then what about Java? It's quicker than Java too.
This number shocked me when I saw it. I was like, wow, 1,000% faster? Like, that's kind of crazy.
Now, I'm
what does this matter?
Does it matter? In some cases, it doesn't. And so, like, you could read the comments in here, and these guys are right. Like, well, in real world scenarios, sometimes, you know, technically could be faster in a benchmark, but like, is it faster in practice? So if you're returning like, you know, 10K of strings, I mean, you only can do that so fast. You know, It's like, you know, all of them are fast, you know. But as things get more complicated, as things become more involved, and more things are tacked onto this to build a modern application, it does matter. So like if you're running airlines or, you know, something big, then these performance increases will matter. Now, will you get 16% out of it? No, but you might get 5 or 10%, and that's pretty cool. And this leads to adoption, is what I want you to understand. When you start looking at this, and I know that we're fans of .NET, we teach it here in the school, but I want you to understand why we do it. It's not because I'm a Microsoft fanboy, or we're paid by Microsoft, or Microsoft supports us. It's just that we went out and looked at the marketplace, and I knew that what I was doing in the consulting company, saying, hey, this is what I get paid to do. This is what everybody wants us to do. I see a lot of apps built this way. Let's just build the Bootcamp in and around that. And it just so happens, since we've been doing that since, you know, the earlier versions pre-core, that now fast forward that, you know, a good 8-9 years later, it's like, wow, okay, we have made the right choice here, because Microsoft is building the tooling, they're building the language, they're building the framework, and they're building the hosting environment, like with Azure. They have the complete package.
Which comes to that here in a second.
Yeah. So let's look at this. This is other things that are important to people. gRPC, which is like a binary format transferred. And so like, that's like, there's a compression format, proto buffers, those types of things that where we can zip up the communication between the endpoint and the server and transfer it. Okay, that is becoming increasingly more important, instead of using like plain text things like JSON. So like, this is important. So now everyone's looking at the throughput that I can do this on, and you can see now this is faster than Rust, which is like unbelievable that they could.
Well, you've seen, I mean, Rust and Go, and obviously C++. They've obviously touted speed being a thing in this run for a long time, and being top of that chain. And this now, this was impressive.
No. also being that, here's the other thing you need to think about. Let's say that you're basing your career on .NET, you're basing your career on C#, and you're like, this is what I'm going to be. Am I worried that other languages are going to catch up with it? Well, here's the two new ones, Go and Rust. And so there's going to be no reason to switch over to these languages because they do have the speed and the performance already nailed down. And on top of that, they have the tooling, the infrastructure, all the things around it, the ecosystem that a lot of developers and companies jump into. And so therefore, it's really hard for another ecosystem to compete. Really hard because they don't have it. So let's look at Go. I mean, if you look at Go, even from Google, it's just really hard for them to compete because they don't have the whole infrastructure put together. You would think they could do it, but it's really hard to compete.
Right.
Really hard. So then this minimal API is interesting. Things that we do here in the school, we'll probably push something out in the self-paced course on this topic, but it's like putting APIs in one file, and then you can push those endpoints out to somewhere, and then people can navigate to them, and it returns a JSON result. So that is kind of cool. And it's been very similarly easy on Node to build out these one file things. And now Microsoft has come back and said, hey, we're going to make it ML APIs. And then in .NET 7, they did it in .NET 6, and now in .NET 7, they've improved it further so that they're going to make this even more robust. For example, there's going to be a thing called route groups, which allows you to say, I've got my endpoints defined, which are like functions, Kevin. Like I got function 1, get weather, and then post weather, and then I've got like 10 functions in there. Well, let's say I had a section of those functions that need to be authenticated, and then I had another section that I wanted purely public, and you could hit those anonymous. Well, I have to go through each one of those functions and apply all of those features to it. Now with groups, I can group these into one folder, but it's called a map group, and it will say /public, and that's automatically tapped on to the ones that I want public and the ones that I want private. In addition, in the private ones, I can add things like, here's the authentication method that I want to use, and I do it in one spot, and that applies to all of the routes that I put in there. So it's kind of cool that they're doing that inside of .NET 7. In less than 1 minute, and if you don't understand, I get it, it's hard to talk about, but like these are the types of things that are going on, which again, leads to adoption, and that's going to be my my theme as we go through this.
Yeah, all these things. You're right. They might think like, what is that? This does that already. This does that already. This does that already. Or like, what does that game mean? It's like, you're right. It leads to adoption because the people making the choices about who's using this do care about these things. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot of C# 11 highlights. If you're just breaking in, these aren't important to you, but like raw string literals, what's that mean? Go read about it if that's important to you.
Yes,
the cool thing you need to understand, even with C# 10, it was already really feature rich. C# 11 is just adding more things to it. Here's the takeaway that you need to understand is that this language called C# is going to be improved every single year. There is a roadmap of what they're going to do for every 12 months. And as we get to the end of this, we'll talk about like how that roadmap impacts you as a developer, how does it impact you as getting jobs. But if you say, hey, is C# going to be around? Yeah, they actually have a roadmap for it to be around. And so like when you go look at other languages, are they publishing that, or is that what they're doing? Are they committing this amount of resources to improving? And this is just the C# language. This has, and it takes its fingers into Visual Studio, into VS Code, but you can write C# without those tools, but those tools will also help you do it a lot easier. So you may not care about list patterns or raw string literals, but there's always someone who does when you start looking at all of these features, and you're like, wow, that's cool. I like that. That leads to adoption. That leads to people staying in the platform that's already in the ecosystem, and they're not necessarily looking for a new way to do something because, thank you, Kevin. Ken Klein. Thanks.
Thank you. Flavor, thanks for all the content. Glad to see you're all going strong even with the office transition. .NET's blowing powerful and fast. Yeah, definitely.
Yep, it is. It is.
Yeah. We're gonna be in this limbo for a little bit longer. The new office is taking a whole minute to build out. So
yeah, we're getting through. Of all just to digress, of all the things that we thought would hang up our new office build out was like permitting in the town of Kernersville. I'm like, come on, man. I probably went to high school with 3 of those guys. Just
exactly. Just
prove it.
Yeah. Whose palm do I need to grease to make this thing go through? Come on, small town.
Can I just say hello? I mean, come on, Frank. Hook me up here. We went to
We need signs. We need permits for everything too, don't we? It's crazy. It's like, repowered. Thank you, Super Chat. I would say for someone who's looking to build SaaS microservices, how would .NET be an advantage? Good question.
Yeah, it's built into minimal APIs now, and there's also Azure containers, and we'll get to that in a second.
We'll talk about that in a second. That's part of this part here too, right?
Yeah, that part you can build microservices with your minimal APIs, or you can go to the full-fledged non-minimal APIs, and you scroll down with Azure containers.
I think it's the next thing. One of Blazor's.
Well, let's talk about Blazor, and we'll get to that, Breed. So like. Here's the thing that we've been talking about for a good 3 years now, and people think, where is it? What's happening, Bobby? I think someone tweeted me out the other day, like, JavaScript's still here.
Yeah, which is great.
I get it.
That video is going to live forever. It really is.
I know, yeah. It's like, I get it. We were future telling you what's going to happen so that you could prepare your career in advance. It's really hard. It's not hard, but like when it gets here, then you got to scramble to do it. We're telling you that WebAssembly and Blazor is going to be a thing. And what you're looking at is where it's at today. And you're saying, oh, it's not there today. Okay, so 2 years ago, it's an experimental thing. And you're like, yeah, I get it, but JavaScript's better. I'm like, but that's where it's at today. This is where it's headed. But this is what's cool. So one of the holy grails of development has been like, I'm going to write this once and run it anywhere. We've been saying that since 2000 and probably in the 90s. Yeah, big promises, So one of the things that they really focused in on with Blazor is I want Blazor components to run in .NET MAUI. Now, if you don't know what .NET MAUI is, .NET MAUI allows you to run things on iOS, Android, and desktop, and in Linux. And so now a Blazor component will run in all of those platforms without you changing code. It will even run. You can make your own HTML tag, that's what I call it, and you can stick it in an Angular app, and it'll compile and run inside the Angular app.
Yeah, that's cool.
So let's say that you're on Angular, and you're like, I don't really like Angular anymore. I really like where Blazor is going, but we got 100,000 lines of code here. We can't just change the app next week. They'll start writing components, and then that component will run on inside the framework on Angular. Here's the cool thing. Let's say that I'm running an enterprise app operation here. I've got a desktop app. I've got a mobile app on iOS and Android, and I also have a web app. All of those are kind of different, okay? But I may have like a common thing that I want to use, like registration or a contact form, or even some other kind of like really distinct functionality that we have, and I won't run it in all these platforms. Blazor will do that. And so now you start building out your components in a common way, and it'll run everywhere. That, my friend, is a game changer. Because like when you talk about like teams and you're at a bank, okay, let's say you're running the bank at Wells Fargo, and you've got this same problem. Maybe you have a desktop app that's for the commercial traders, and then you've got the mobile app for, everyone else that's running mobile, and then you got your web app where people log into your web app. You want the component to run everywhere and do all those things. You can do that with Blazor. Very powerful. Very cool.
That's cool.
And so like, this is what's up there. And they have a little thing. It's called custom elements right there at the top. If you're looking at that chart there, that's what that is. It runs everywhere. And so they spent the first year, half of this year, and this, I call it a sprint, but in this iteration of the release, working on .NET MAUI, and then they worked on Blazor improvements after that. So it's really cool. And it's coming. It's really coming. So there is no other company that I know of that's investing this much into Blazor and WebAssembly than Microsoft. That's why ultimately they're going to win. You're going to turn around 24 months from now, 2 years from now, and you're like, wow, that Blazor thing is really, really cool. Who else has something out there? Nobody, because they won't be able to catch up at this point, and they'll dominate the WebAssembly space. Suddenly people will be writing apps that run in the browser that you can't do in JavaScript, is what we've been saying for years now.
Well, that's the promise of WebAssembly, isn't it? So yeah,
that's the promise, and they're doing that. But they're also going to make that Blazor architecture run everywhere, and that's also what's kind of cool as well.
definitely. Okay, Azure.
Azure. And so like one of the things too that we've been saying, write serverless functions, that's what Azure functions are. So .NET 7, and this is important, that .NET 7, the moment it came out, it's running up on Azure. And this is one of the benefits of owning the cloud platform, owning the tooling, owning the language, owning the framework, is that they can tie it together and they roll it out, and suddenly they've got the different teams and they're all in lockstep together and say, okay, now we've got .NET 7 support in Azure Functions, which means I can write it in .NET 7 with what I want, and then I don't have to spin up a web server. I don't have to do anything. I write these functions that just run, and you can ready to go for you to any in your environment. So what can you do? Well, you can do everything, and it's fully managed, and it's they say cost effective. Now, I don't know if serverless functions is the cheapest, absolute cheapest way to do it, but there is a cost of meaning that, can I spin it up quickly? Yes. And on certain scenarios, is it probably cheaper than getting a whole VM? Yes.
I think that's what they're saying here with cost effective.
They're not saying volumes.
They're not saying it's the cheapest. They're saying maybe the integration and the time that you don't have to waste integrating it makes it cost effective.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So you don't have to deploy a server, you don't have to maintain it, and you can get it up and get it out, and it runs up in Azure, and it's scalable. So it's kind of cool. And so those are serverless functions.
Yep. All
right. So container highlights, what Bree was asking about. What about microservices? Absolutely. So now when you have these containers, they're purpose built for microservices, so that you can take that infrastructure and push it up into Azure in a more cost-effective, easy way. And also because it's built in containers, you have a way to actually test that down in your local environment. So that's pretty powerful things in here. Again, they own the cloud platform, which means they're saying, hey, we want to do this. They go to the cloud platform team, say, you got to do this. They in turn do it. And they said, okay, this new language, new framework's coming out. You need to support it. They turn around and they do it. And it has to come out year over year, every year.
Yeah, which we'll see in a second.
This,
exactly. At the end here somewhere.
Yep. And so again, like, what can you build without container apps, microservices, APIs, your traditional APIs, your web application, your MVC web applications, event-driven processing. If something happens, do this kind of workflows, and then just background things that you just want to like kick off, maybe a nightly job process or something like that runs in the background, or, some kind of video processing. Say Austin super chat us. Thanks, Austin. What's up?
Yeah. Let me,
what's his question here?
Let me pull that up real quick. And so thank you for the $20. Appreciate it. It says, I'll have to go back and rewatch the first half of this video. I was in a meeting at work. It's a good place to be. Just curious, have you seen You with Rust? I don't know if that'd be as good as Blazor.
No. And I'm not saying that, but that it's going to suck. I'm just saying that. Let me explain what I mean, Austin. All right, and when we say this, it's possible. It's not that they can't do it. The question is, can they keep up with what Microsoft is doing? All right. And that's where I say no, because let me show you what they're planning to do here. And so we'll go back to that, but that's a good question. Can they keep up? And I don't think they will. And it's because of the release schedule.
Hold on.
I guess someone getting spammed on there.
I think someone's account is probably active.
Wow. Okay. We had to handle some spam. We had to take that hammer ban out. Sorry about that, Andy.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with his account. He's been here before. So. Oh, man. Okay. Hold on. Let me go back to that.
Yeah.
There we go.
So we'll scroll down to the release schedule, and then we'll answer some questions after this. So let's talk about .NET MAUI, because all of this is integrated. Okay, you have to understand from where Microsoft's sitting that all of these things matter, and we look at them in silos. But when you step back and say, what are they trying to do? So .NET MAUI can allow you to build cross-platform applications. We're talking about iOS, Android, and desktop. So just imagine if Twitter was a cross-platform development. Obviously, it's not, because when they rolled out the first iteration of Blue Check, it only worked on iOS. So they have an iOS team, they have an Android team.
And did it really work? Like,
yeah, but they only could roll it out once. They had one team do it, and so whereas .NET MAUI would say, okay, now we're going to make this run cross-platform. Now look at the growth of .NET MAUI. Now you can say, well, no one was using it. Of course, they're going to have a high growth rate. That's partially true. But the .NET stars for .NET MAUI is almost equal to .NET Core, which has been around for 5 years. That tells you, regardless of what you're reading on tech Twitter, and that MAUI's not going to be there and it's not going to happen, people are adopting this as well, because there needs to be a cross-platform thing that they can rely on. And you have your backend services that you'd put on a MAUI app that could run up in Azure or a web API or a Mental API, and then that thing communicates to it. And you want to use one ecosystem to do this, makes it easy to do instead of you cobbling together an ecosystem. And so like you can build in .NET MAUI, build your backend and web API or a microservice or whatever you want to do and make your app function. And apparently they've hit the nail on the head here. A lot of people are adopting this. Now there's a lot of competition in this cross-platform space, but they're one of the few that also nailed the desktop in addition to mobile at the same time. So that's a pretty big achievement. And Blazor components, and I want to mention this again, run in this MAUI ecosystem and in the web, and so it makes it to where they're going to pull this all together so that you can pick the different technology based on the application that you're writing. Where do you want it to run? Where do you want it to execute? And now with .NET, you can achieve that. You don't have to pull together 6 different engineering teams. You can do it with the same engineering team, which is kind of cool. All right, so scroll down and we'll look at those likes. You can see that they have stars, about the same stars. Yep. And .NET MAUI is pretty new. Yep. So, but .NET MAUI performance, we found this funny to have lols per second.
Lols per second.
So it's like, what are lols? And then they said, well, we put laughing out loud on the screen. How many of these could we write? And so they're just showing you that .NET MAUI is faster than what Xamarin was. So if you're comparing it to Xamarin, it's not the same thing. Yep. Here's what's important. .NET MAUI is going to be in its first major release in .NET 7, and they're going to have a major release from 8 into 9 going forward. So that's the next 3 cycles of this. And those releases largely are planned out, which means they're committing time, people, money, and effort into making sure that .NET MAUI is the platform that it needs to be. And that is why ultimately, and the same thing for Blazor, the same thing for the web development, ASP.NET, and that's why they're going to win. That's why, Austin, when you ask the question, hey, are they going to beat Rust? Yes, because they're one of the only companies in the world that have the time, the opportunity, the money, and then just the integration between the platform, between the tooling teams, between the language teams, between the framework teams that no one else has. I mean, no one else has. And not to mention, there's such an innovator in this space. Guess who? They sit on the WebAssembly board. They're driving the features that's going to happen inside of WebAssembly, which in turn allows them to be more reactive to what does Blazor really need to do on the website? What does it really need to do to be competitive? What do the tools need to do to be competitive? And that is why ultimately it's going to be the premium, the S tier version of all of this in development. And that's why we continue to build our bootcamp based in and around this. And we've said this before. If I saw this as going south, I would just change the bootcamp and teach something else, because my goal isn't to be dogmatic or religious about this. It's about getting you a job. And so we say, what's necessary? What is necessary for you to learn to get a job? And what is competitive out there in the marketplace? That's what we're teaching here at Coder Foundry. And that's why we continue to be bullish on .NET. When you see this, you're like, wow, okay, they've got a good billion people and a good $1 billion, and they own every aspect of this. They own GitHub. I mean, they own everything, and they're going to roll this out. And it's open source, so other people can add enhancements to it. It's fantastic. And when you see these annual releases, and you never thought, does that really matter? They have an annual release for a language or a framework. Who cares about that? Until you see that they're pushing the envelope forward every single time with every one of these releases, and they have a plan, a roadmap, just like you would anything else. They're treating this a full-blown product, just like you would. You want new features to come out. They're doing that, responsive to being things are fixed. So that's our bullish report on .NET, and it looks really good. Adoption means jobs, man. If a lot of companies adopt this, you can get a job doing it.
I think that's the takeaway here, isn't it? Like constantly evolving, new features, new things makes better adoption. Adoption just makes more jobs. That's the way we see it. That's the way we see it.
Right. And and then the other, there's lots of questions about Maui. Are they going to get here? They're going to get there. You can go talk to Microsoft to see kind of where they're going to go. What I want you to understand is there's a lot of people working on this. It's like it's going to get there. And it's only in its first release, .NET Maui, .NET 7. They had something out last year, but this is the major release that's coming out for Maui. And if that's in your realm and you're building desktop apps and you're building Windows apps or iOS or Android apps, you need to look at this, because I think there's going to be a lot of jobs out there for this. If you're interested in WebAssembly whatsoever, you need to take a look at Blazor. You need to look at that, because I think that's ultimately where web development goes. He says, are they evolving process? I'm like, I don't think it's an evolving process. I think it's a always will be a whip or work in progress, where they're always continually pushing Maui to do the things, listening to customers. What does it do? What does it not do?
Yeah, because I think that's in response to this, because Simon had asked this question. Still not heard of the plans are regarding UI testing framework for Maui. Xamarin UI testing.
It's definitely going to be a Maui equivalent. They'll come up with something else. Xamarin is Maui. I mean, in other words, like the basis of what Xamarin used to be called is being rebranded and then pushed up underneath the .NET framework, and they've just named that thing Maui, Multiple Application UI Framework. I mean, the guy went on vacation and he had to name it Maui, and so he came up with the words. That's what happened.
Yeah, so, great name.
Hashtag naming conventions. I like that.
Yeah, there we go. That's it. We'll just leave this up here. Yeah. I swear, Microsoft should just allow people to write in names of their products, because they'd get way better responses than whoever internally comes up with their product names.
They have a habit of naming it after things. Like for a while, they used to name things after lakes and bridges. And it's just that the developer is like going to work or something like that, or a place he's been, and he comes back and says, "This is what we're naming it."
We're going to shoehorn this name into this thing, right?
Yeah.
Into this thing. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm okay with naming it after. I'm obviously okay with the Apple naming. The locations they have for the current OSs works for me. The big cats always worked for me before. I think that's fine.
So. Yeah, NC70 Hero asked, is that going to be the same for Vue, Svelte, and React? They only showed Angular. I'm assuming, yes, that it's some kind of JavaScript interrupt, how this is working. So, yes, I'm assuming it's React. It's just that Angular is a built-in template from Microsoft. There's also a React template, too, that's inside of Visual Studio. I'm sure it works both the same way. So, but I have to read more about, if there's any limitations there. But...
Okay, let's do some other questions. I queued up a few from earlier too. So, Force City said, "Hey, I took the quiz and checked out the site. I don't know if we can do a full-time bootcamp. Will the self-paced be equivalent?" Yes and no. You build all the same stuff for sure. You just don't get the level of support you get in the full-time bootcamp. That's the big difference between the two. It's the level of support. Content-wise, they're very, very similar. You build kind of the same things.
Yeah, and so if you come into the boot camp, just know that you're going to have an instructor 40 hours per week, 5 days a week over that 12 weeks. And so when you get stuck, we unstick you. That's why they're priced differently. It's obviously more expensive for us to operate the full-time boot camp than it is to run a self-paced course. But we realize people can't come full-time for 3 straight months.
Yep.
It's a commitment, but we try to offset that commitment and say, all right, we're going to pour into you for that 12 weeks and try to make sure that you get to be the best person that you can get at. We also build more things in the full-time boot camp than we do self-paced. There are some more things that we build. But in general, the main things, Bug Tracker, Blog, Contact Pro are all inside of the self-paced content at this point.
Hanish wants to know thoughts on .NET 7 being faster than Golang. We kind of talked about this earlier already. So.
Yeah, you can look at all those benchmarks. Yeah, it's fast. I mean, in certain scenarios, okay. And so, like, obviously, Microsoft's going to show you the scenario that it's the fastest in. It's not going to show you where it's slower, obviously.
Right.
I think the broader message is .NET 7 is really, really fast. And what you should take away from this, if it's going to be fast and they're continuing to push the development, is why would you adopt Golang when .NET 7 is already fast? And I think that's the message you need to understand. Now, there's certain people going to adopt Golang no matter what. They don't really care. That's what they're going to do, and that's just fine. But what they're trying to say is our ecosystem has everything, the tooling, the place that you can deploy it, and the language, and the performance. And so we want you to come here so that you can use all of this stuff to build the app that you want to build. It's pretty fast, you know. It's amazing. It's still a managed language that it is running that fast. Is what's amazing about it.
Okay, so the next one. Ivan says, so I don't have anything in my GitHub and I want to upload a project that one day will help me find work. I have knowledge of Entity Framework, OOP, C#, and I can make a single page app with JavaScript. I want some ideas.
Well, we've got a bunch of ideas. You can go watch some of our videos. We got 5 coding project ideas. Obviously, the bug tracker is the one coding project. We've released several videos in the last year about just project ideas.
Yeah, go back and look through our channel. We definitely have a bunch of stuff out there. You won't have to go back too far to see some project ideas.
And you can just type in coding project or coding project ideas. We got several videos on that.
Yep. This is more of a comment here. Ridge Raider says, Blazor is nice. We should get used to creating and using components.
That's cool. I mean, and making components is easier, in my opinion, than React components. But I am biased on that regard because I'm coming from a different point of view. Honestly, you can get used to doing anything, but it's nice.
I'm gonna let this one jump the queue.
Okay.
About says C# developers are too expensive to hire on a startup.
Are you a startup trying to hire people, or are you complaining that
they are literally no more expensive than any other developer? This is such an urban legend myth thing. Like at the top end, sure, a C# developer can make.
So you want to work at a startup and get paid less? Is that your goal in life, or are you trying to hire people to work on your startup? Interesting. I don't know. I would say in the U.S., if you're a web developer, you're making money.
Right.
You're going to be in the same realm as everyone else. I mean, like, you know.
And then that's kind of my point. Is it really is the same realm? It's like, just that doesn't make any sense. Don't let this be a thing that people end up believing. Whether you believe yourself or somebody's told you this or whatever, it's just not true. It's if you have a startup right now, can you get an entry-level developer for about $50,000? C# developer? Yes, you can. Can you get an entry-level Java developer for $50,000? Yes, you can. It's all the same.
Make your technology choice based on the technology, and then go hire the people to do it.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Yep. Let's see. Thomas says, is there any point to dive into the new version of .NET as a beginner after early release? Good question. I'm learning .NET 6 now. It's important to keep newest versions during the learning process.
So what we'll do inside the full-time bootcamp, we'll teach .NET 7 starting in January, but the differences between .NET 6 from a web standpoint, we're talking about ASP.NET Core, MVC, and Razor Pages, is very minimal. So like if you come on our self-paced course and you learn in the .NET 6 Contact Pro, kicking that over to .NET 7 is probably a compile choice. We haven't gone through all that process yet, but it's very minimal in changes. There's some enhancements on top of that, but it's not going to impact your app at all. And so like if you learn .NET 6 right now, you're definitely going to be well positioned to take up .NET 7 or .NET 8 going forward. So keep doing what you're doing. Also, .NET 6 is the long-term release, so companies are more likely to stick on that right now.
Yeah, you're going to have some people who never touch .NET 7. They'll just go to .NET 8, because that's which again will be long-term support. So
yeah. But all these are going to be incremental at this point, and that's what's cool about this, is that you can stay up to date really easily because it's incremental improvements. Now some of them are massive, some of them are rewrites. Like .NET 5 was a massive change, but like .NET 6 was incremental, and .NET 7 doesn't seem like there's that much difference in the way you build your app. But under the covers, yeah, it's faster. It runs quicker, and the same thing does it faster. So.
Okay, Shelly's here. Says, plans to release the blog project under Blazor on the self-paced course for the next few months.
That's the plan. So, like, we'll see. We're going to call it Blog Blazor. We're experimenting that now. In case you're wondering, it'll be built on Blazor server. The reason we're using Blazor server is it's more akin to MVC. It's easier transition than trying to build still runs in WebAssembly. It's just the backend components on the server side instead of running all totally front end.
Cool, I like it. Here's a technical question. I don't know if you know the answer to this or have messed with this.
Yeah.
.NET 7 framework option is not available after installation SDK 7 preview 1. How can I bypass this? It should be, right?
Reinstall everything, then just uninstall it and reinstall it.
Yeah, this is not by design, is it? This is just a bug, right?
Well, no, he's got something newer or something older. That's older. Okay, so like just uninstall that and then reinstall it back in, and you'll get it.
Okay, like I say, it's just there, right?
Yeah, if you install Visual Studio, then you're going to get .NET 7 as an option. So.
Right. Okay. Simon says, is it still recommended to follow the self-paced course using a Windows-based dev environment, or is it possible to follow using the Mac tooling for .NET?
So what I'm using right now, and I've tested it now, is I'm using a Mac Studio Pro, and I'm using Parallels. I'm running Windows on it. And I'm using Visual Studio ARM inside that. That's what I'm doing. So I still think today that Mac Visual Studio isn't on par with Visual Studio for Windows.
Still too different, isn't it?
They're kind of different. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean that you can't write with it. It just means that you're going to have to be responsible for understanding the differences between the two and how it looks and that kind of stuff. So it's probably possible.
Because you're going to run into some kind of an issue, and then it's like we don't have the thing is we don't have the experience to be able to tell you about how to fix that thing. So it's like, whereas we do on the Windows side, so we can definitely help with that kind of stuff. But on the Mac side, it's like it's just so different. We haven't done it, so it's more difficult for us to talk about.
But the Mac with Parallels, Windows ARM, Visual Studio is really, really quick. Now, I will say this, not every workload is inside ARM yet. Okay. And so that's coming. There's more of it out there now. So, but like definitely the last release that came out several weeks ago improved a lot more workloads, but web is there. So I was writing a .NET 7 API this morning right there on my Mac, and Windows 11 ARM with Visual Studio, the newest version of Visual Studio 2022. Yep. So I'm using a Mac, but I run Windows on my Mac. And that's because that the Mac Studio M1 architecture is like really quick.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the machines are just good, aren't they?
Yeah.
They just are. Just want to say hey to is it Kresimir? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm probably butchering your name, and I'm really sorry if I am. But
Golden Slavonia, Croatia.
Slovenia, Croatia.
All right.
That's awesome.
Thanks, man.
I would love to visit there one day. What's the there's a city there. Oh man, I'm blanking on it. But there's a city there that I would really like to go to. One of the really like old cities there. I think it's on the Croatian coast. Okay. But yeah, it's always been on my list.
I'm sure he can tell us what city that is. He probably knows what you're talking about.
Yeah. But it looks very interesting. Let's see. Snoop Dogg says Mac side is more command line on Windows.
Okay. I didn't know Snoop Dogg was a coder. I thought he was just, rapping.
Snoop's into everything. He's
slim cans.
Everything. He is a businessman. Like, he is into everything. N17 Hero likes Rider too as a tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So here's the thing that Rider I think may have, and I haven't tried this, so make sure you download a preview before you call me crazy. But like Rider does have a nice Mac environment, and so like I think they've committed more to the Mac side than Visual Studio is. Problem with Rider, and it's not necessarily a problem, you have to pay for it.
Right.
So it's not, there's no free version. So, but if you really want to work on the Mac side. Now, what I would say is if you're working in a team, and I don't know if this is true with the first version, your whole team needs to be on Rider. It's there are, I think there's differences in the project files, because I had a problem that with the team. This was 2 years ago that one guy was using Rider, and every time we were using Visual, we upload the project, it was different, and it was like, dude, you just gotta quit doing that. We're not using Rider here, you know. But that's not Rider's fault. That's just that you kind of adopted as a team. And on the Mac side, I do think it's superior to the Mac Visual Studio. So,
go. Snoop even took the class. Snoop was, I forget now, but Snoop was an in-person bootcamp person.
Just we don't know your name, man. Don't call me out.
This is the problem with these online names, isn't it? You never know who's who. You never know who's who. And
so,
yes,
like I know,
and 17 Hero knows it's Dubrovnik, and so did Christmas.
Okay.
But yes, Dubrovnik. Yeah, that's on my list of places to go. You should look it up. Amazing, like old city, like looks really, really cool. Looks like an amazing place to visit. And they have really nice beaches there too. I know that on the Croatian coast there. I would definitely visit there.
So Snoop Dogg went to my course, but we don't know who he is yet. All right.
Yeah, I remember talking to them before. There you go, my wheel and highway.
Yeah, they all have to be on Rider. Yes, yeah. That is the key to it.
There you go. So Alex, remember Alex?
Oh, Alex, what's up, man?
There you go. There you go. It's all these, like, when you have these internet names, like, oh yeah, I'm so and so. Like, okay. It's like when I guess somebody plays you in like Destiny or whatever, it'd be the same thing. Like, I don't know who this guy is. Like,
yeah, Code Boy. Who's Code Boy on?
There you go.
You ever see me running around in the thing? You see Code Boy in there? That's me.
That'll be you. That'll be you.
So you can hit me up. So
I like it. Let's see. Alex said still would recommend it to everyone. In person was amazing. Cool. Well, we love that you had an experience.
Thanks, Alex.
Did you leave us a review, Alex? I don't know if you did.
Leave us a review, Alex.
Please go leave us a review. Go to Google right now. Leave us a review. I love that. We got a. I'll talk about this because we don't talk about this very often. But
Snoop's stage name is Alex. That's what we figured out now.
We got a. we recently got a 1-star review on Google from somebody who
didn't come to our class.
No, it was somebody who took the online course.
Well, we couldn't find them.
No, and they didn't like one of the instructors, and it's like, okay, I get it. I get it. Like, they don't like one of the instructors. Like, you know, like, but it's such a small
They didn't like
part
his
of the
voice.
course,
They didn't like his voice.
Yeah, they were very particular about it. I'm like, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, I mean, that doesn't help us at all. Like, it doesn't, like, we're not going to, you know, it's like, I'm all for criticism. Like, constructive criticism helps us. It really does. If somebody's like, hey, this doesn't work for me, and here's the reason why, that's gay. Like, I don't like the guy's voice. Like, that doesn't help me. People probably don't like mine, but, like, you know,
right.
I don't know.
Luckily, it wasn't my voice they didn't like, so because I'm recording
kind of stuck with it. Exactly. So
maybe we can have that voice changer option to there, you know, where I could sound like Darth Vader when I'm coding or something like that, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
You know,
there you go. I would definitely check that out. N17 Mostar as well. I've heard of that too. Yeah, I will check that out. I'll make it there someday. Yeah. I think my next overseas trip. Well, I'm going back to the UK for Christmas for sure this year. I haven't been back in a while, but I want to go to Iceland too. You want to go to Iceland?
Man,
it's supposedly it's like a volcanic island, right? So you can get there pretty cheap from the US because it's not that far away.
Right.
That's probably my next.
I always thought it was funny that Greenland is full of ice and Iceland is green. I just thought that's weird.
That's the Vikings for you. Apparently, that's how they got named because that was a myth. That was a thing that they had a myth around, I guess. There's some like truth to that. They named them
unless the world was different then, and we.
No. It was intentionally like a thing that they did, I guess, like to try and like, especially with Greenland was the thing. Like, call it Greenland, the people will come or whatever. It's like, it's not green at all.
It's like, hey, wait a second, I've been hoodwinked here.
Exactly.
Well, we're moving in.
Iceland has like a lot of different like things to look at. It's volcanic. They have like black volcanic rock everywhere, and it's like in the summer, supposed to be very nice. So cool. Okay, we're a little bit after, so let's quit this. We have a new video coming out tomorrow. By the way, again.
Okay, yeah.
That's like 4 things this week. We've been busy.
Yeah, so like I'm excited about this one. Just watch it if you want. I mean, like, so it may not be something that you've come across always, but
it could.
if
It
you're
might
in
save you
Europe,
some legal troubles.
if you're in Europe, it may save you some legal trouble. So check it out tomorrow. And and these kind of like privacy things do come from when the GDPR it comes this way to the US, and it may be there's a reason why when you click on a website to say accept all cookies, it's Europe's fault. Here in America, we're like, well, whatever, man, they're cookies, dude. So now we have to do that. So this is the same kind of thing for Google Fonts. So like Google Fonts apparently is violating privacy laws. And so I'm going to show you how to
take into account as a dev for sure. Like these are things you have to think of, definitely. You have to think about where your app's being used, definitely.
Right. And if you make a website, it's more than likely it will get used in Europe. I mean, if you make something of any, it's just people can get to it, so you might need to change the way you use Google Fonts. And I'll show you an easy way to do that tomorrow.
Yeah. Cool. I like it.
All right. Is next week Thanksgiving? Are we out next week?
Yeah, we are. I'm traveling next week. So
okay.
Not be
so we are 2 weeks. We'll be on vacation next week, Thursday and Friday. I'll try to text Kevin when US goes up 2-0 on Friday.
I won't be answering.
I just want to see if they do go. I want you to take a picture of you surrounded by 10,000 people and you standing on a stool.
I will definitely take a picture this time. I will video the thing. If that happens, I will be videoing this time for proof that it happened. See if I make it out this time. Maybe I just got lucky last time. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. We'll see you guys in a couple of weeks. We'll release some content next week, help you out. Anyway, good luck. Just keep coding. We'll see you later.
We'll catch you guys later.